let you explain what your background is.
Sure. Yeah, you mentioned I was a Navy guy. I got in the Navy right outside of high school and spent a good deal of time there. I've been writing about football, doing football stuff for about a decade now. I started Relative Athletics course back in 2013, expanded in 2017, which that's the analytics, the measurements, and all that stuff that I do. I started working for Pro Football Network and stopped writing a little over, it's almost been 2 years now. And I run the mock draft simulator at Pro Football Network now as well, on top of all the other analytic stuff that I do. So draft time, man, this is my time, right?
Right, exactly. Like I said, I said we're going to geek out here because we get all the numbers and all the cool draft stuff here. So, all right, so this is a Bengals podcast here. So, where are you at with the Bengals as far as the numbers goes of who they could draft and where they could draft and stuff like that?
Yeah, the Bengals could go any number of ways, man. It's a very talented team. You've already got your quarterback set, so you're just going to be working at building around them. Bengals offensive line for the last couple of years, they haven't had the most athletic offensive line in some time. It would be nice to start to see them to change that a little bit, and I think that would be a welcome change for a lot of Bengals fans to be able to see them pulling some guys that really maybe move a little bit better, maybe provide a little bit more protection for Joe Burrow. That's their primary need for me. And I've been, whenever we talk about the Bengals, that's usually the first thing that comes up is there a tackle that they can take? I've seen center brought up quite a bit too, as if there's a guy that they can look at in those two positions, primarily on the line. There's still some needs on defense too, some potential secondary needs in the safety. Interior defensive line could use a little bit of work, but a lot of talent. It's just a little scattered.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you brought up center, and I am a huge Tyler Linderbaum fan. I went from believing he's not going to be there at 31 to now thinking there's a chance. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I am, because of the versatility of Ted Karras, that they signed him, and he's able to play left guard, which actually I think he's a better left guard than he actually is a center. And Tyler Linderbaum is he's a center only, so I think that's going to be make it harder for other teams to draft him. He also fits the Bengals zone blocking scheme perfectly. So that's where I'm like, I think he's the perfect guy to go get. Now, if one of the tackles or somebody's there, obviously you would go get them, and you just keep Karras at center. But what is your thoughts on Linderbaum moving forward?
Yeah, Linderbaum came out. He was projected to be one of the most athletic linemen in the class. He wasn't able to test initially. He was still working through some things at the combine. He worked out much later. And he only put up the best cone time by a center ever when he finally did test. So he's definitely an athletic guy. He's on the smallish side for an offensive lineman, and even for a center, which are generally the smallest of the three main positions on the line. So size isn't his thing, but he's got tons of quickness and explosiveness. We've been seeing this out of Iowa linemen for forever. I mean, this is why these guys generally tend to be plug and play guys all over the NFL, because they build them up. They breed out that athleticism, breed it out. They bring out that athleticism for these guys, and it really shows up on film. I mean, you watch Tyler Linderbaum, and the guy just coasts. He's a very easy mover when he's on the field, and that would be a welcome addition, I think, to the middle of that line.
Now, I have a question. The knock against him is his short arms, and Bengals fans, we hear that. First thing you think of is Billy Price and how that didn't work out for the Bengals there. I personally think Linderbaum has done a good job of working with his disability, or whatever you want to call it, short arms. But what's your thoughts on how he counteracts the short arms, being able to work with that?
And whenever we're talking about arms, and this is actually true of height as well, we're not really paying attention to their arm length and to their height. We're paying attention to length. Length is the thing that matters in the NFL. And if a guy has shorter arms, but he's really explosive, your arm length doesn't really matter all that much. Because you see it as a problem when guys with shorter arms will lunge. They'll lunge at defensive linemen, and they won't be able to get their hands on them. So they spend a lot of time removing or changing their center of gravity in a negative way when they're trying to reach for guys, and that causes problems. You don't really see that with Linderbaum, and I think a big reason for that is because he's such an explosive athlete. He's able to minimize that length issue that he has just from his arms being a little bit shorter.
Now I know with Billy Price, and you're talking about where they bend and get the leverage and everything. And I think that was a lot of what I heard for Billy Price. I think if I'm getting this right, he bent more at his waist instead of his hips. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's usually what you see for guys that have to do that have to lunge. You'll sometimes see it with guys who have longer arms but just aren't as quick and as explosive because they're trying to make up for that lack of length, which is part of your explosiveness and your arm length.
Right.
It all kind of works together. So if you have both, fantastic. But if you don't have one, you got to make up for it with the other one.
But I think that the thing, the knock on Linderbaum too was that he wasn't as athletic, but then he went to his pro day and killed it, and now he's considered extremely athletic. Which I think I always find it funny how during draft season, okay, he's not this, okay, he is this. All right, it just goes so back and forth, and sometimes I just feel that sometimes you just need to watch the tape. I mean, if you've seen the guy playing the Big Ten, he was mauling dudes. So I mean, that's I'm no draft expert or anything. I'm just the host of of a very small podcast here. But I think I just think that's the interesting thing. Just this time of year of how guys drop and move up without even playing games.
And a lot of it, man, if a guy's athletic, it shows up on tape. There's nobody that tests out, as some kind of ridiculous freak athlete that doesn't show up somewhere on tape, right? You're going to see that. You're going to see that explosiveness, that quickness. I mentioned the smoothness, the way that he moves. You see that stuff on tape. The testing is just confirming that kind of stuff and really showing you, is this guy who I think he is? And it's checking boxes. If a guy looks athletic on tape, he's a good mover, he looks explosive, and then he tests that way, great. Check it, move on, right?
Right.
If he looks like that and then he tests way above expectations, that's when you start going, oh wow, this is a little bit different than what I expected. We saw that with Jordan Davis at the Combine, who wasn't just athletic, he was one of the most athletic players in the history of ever.
Fast as hell, too.
It's just crazy, right? That wasn't expected.
Right.
So we knew he was athletic. We didn't know he was that level of athlete. When you watch a guy on tape and he looks athletic and then he doesn't test well, now you have to go back to the tape and you have to think, am I missing something? Is this something I was wrong about as an evaluator? Or are the numbers not really that much of a concern? And that's where you get into the style of play. You look at a guy like Traylon Burks, the wide receiver out of Arkansas. He had got a lot of flack for his combine because some people really expected him to test just off the charts. A lot of folks didn't, though. A lot of folks were looking at him as a guy that wins through power and by his physicality and the way that he uses his size to box out players as a receiver. And his testing doesn't really show anything wrong when you look at him that way. So if you're evaluating him and you think he isn't a guy that wins with speed, he doesn't win through quickness, and then he doesn't test fast or quick, then you don't care. It's still checking a box because he's not slow. He wasn't below your expectations. So it isn't just about getting those elite scores. They look great on a scorecard. I love seeing the big, the green numbers and all that stuff. That's all fantastic. But if a guy doesn't win in those ways, who cares? Nobody cares if Wayne Gretzky is a great